Are you a teacher who frequently has students coming up to you and asking you repeated questions even though you know they kind of know that information already? We are Elizabeth DuPont-Spencer and Kimberly Morrow from Anxiety Training, and we have a tip today to help you with this common problem. Now, we so often hear from teachers that they have students coming up to them and really taking a lot of time with things that don't necessarily feel like they're academic, that they feel like they're anxious. And that's an important distinction. But as an example, I think about two different teachers that I talk to. We go out to the schools and talk to teachers, so we have the firsthand knowledge of what some of the things are that you're struggling with. And I think about a second grade teacher who felt like her classroom had really gone a direction of her needing to provide a lot of reassurance about what the assignment was. Her policy had been to have it up on the board, the assignment, and then take it down later in the day because she was doing other things, and the students felt that they needed it over and over again, that left on the board. So there was one example. And then another example was an AP Bio teacher whose students were so anxious about getting perfect grades on their assignments that they would literally review the assignment with the teacher before they handed it in, which just took the teacher a lot of extra time to go over that with her students. So those are just two examples of what teachers are up against with this.
Yeah, and we want you to know, if you're listening to this, that we have so much empathy and compassion for you as teachers. You have so many balls in the air, so many things you have to attend to, and if anxiety is in your classroom, which, by the way, both of those examples, I was thinking, oh yeah, anxiety grows. Like, you may just have one student who actually has an anxiety disorder, but once they're expressing their anxiety and you're trying to reassure them, literally it catches on to other students, and then everyone else is like, well, what if I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe I should be listening to what the teacher is saying, and now you have an entire room full of anxious students. And so we really want to be helpful to teachers. We do go into schools and we give trainings, but today we want to give you a couple tips about how you might be able to handle this kind of a situation. And one that I want to share with you is that I think it's really important that we return to an environment in the classrooms that's really a learning and experiential environment, one where it's really encouraged to make mistakes, because that can be a hard thing. Most anxious kids, students, adults, maybe even you if you're watching this, really are terrified of making mistakes, and then they have such a critical voice with themselves about, I can't believe I said that, that was so stupid. They're terrified of how their peers are going to view them if they make a mistake in front of everybody. So having a very purposeful classroom environment where we're all learning together, and I expect you to make mistakes, and even rewarding kids. If you're a teacher where you have them give presentations and some of these kids are just terrified to do that, if you have a candy bar and you're like, if you're willing to go up there and shake and sweat and not even be able to get through your entire presentation, but do it anyways, you are teaching them such an important skill. And that is, it's okay to make mistakes. We can't always do our best, but learning how to do it even though we have anxiety gets us closer, versus helping accommodate kids to not do these hard things. That only makes their anxiety grow.
Absolutely, and it's funny that we're talking about this willingness to make mistakes, because we just had a mistake. I just made a mistake. We recorded this video a couple minutes ago, except obviously I didn't set something correctly because it didn't record. So here we are on take two talking about mistakes, and we just laughed when we got to the end and realized that it hadn't taped, because that's a perfect example of the way for all of us in life. Things don't go the way we planned, and we need to be able to be resilient, to be able to step back up and figure out, okay, that didn't work out. Now what are we going to do? That's where so much growth happens, and honestly, that's what you want to cultivate in your classroom. That kind of attitude of, okay, I can make a mistake and the world doesn't end, and I can keep moving forward.
Yeah. The second tip we want to give you today is just about reassurance seeking. So anxious students are going to find all kinds of creative ways to get information and the same information over and over and over again, and not get started doing their work or hand in their work. So I want to just say that it's really important that you do give them the information, and you might even need to give it another way, right? You might need to write it on the board or have it on a printout or have it on your PowerPoint. But once you know that you've given the information in a couple of ways, and this feels like anxiety, not academic learning, then you really need to give yourself permission to call it out and to say, I think you're all feeling some anxiety about this. And the only way forward is for you to get started, even though you're feeling anxious. That's such an important statement, that you validate, I understand you're worried, but I want you to get started anyways, even though you're feeling anxious and you don't know if you exactly know how to do it. Because if kids can develop that skill, then they can get more information as they go. But when they're paralyzed with anxiety on this side of it, you're just going to be spending a lot of time reassuring them.
Exactly, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you get started, right? But if you're saying, I have to understand the whole thing before you get started, again, they're just getting themselves into a situation where they can't actually get started and relying on you too much to fill in those needs for them. And it can feel simpler in the moment to reassure them, to give them the information. But if you're watching this, it's probably because it's built up over time and that reassurance is no longer working. And that's really typical with anxiety. So if you're seeing that, it's probably anxiety, not information.
Yeah. So we have a lot more tips and tricks to share with you for anxious students in the classroom. If you're interested, please click on the link below.